I sat down and watched it last night. Congratulations.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, it's a bit of a romp, isn't
It is. I got to ask, where did the idea come from for this one?
Well, David, like actually sitting in the Taverna itself, because
Yeah.
it's one of my favourite little Greek spots in Melbourne, and I'd been working on a couple of things, a couple of projects, but none were really working for me. I couldn't quite, and I've been wanting to work with Vangelis Mourikis, who's the, of course, that's the owner of the Taverna in the film, and just one night there, sitting in the back courtyard, finishing off my meal and having a kind of wine, I just thought, I think I can tell a story I've been wanting to tell, but, really just right in this environment, And so from that moment, when I sort of got the idea that I had a whole bunch of characters in my head that I'd met that I'd love to kind of work with, in terms of developing into a story. And I just thought, maybe I can just bring them all together inside a Taverna. So that's sort of how it happened, Dave.
Yeah. I grew up in Oakley, so these kinds of restaurants are very, very natural for me. And that's one of the things that really hit me with this film was just how natural the characters were and how natural the setting was. What was that like for you to film in an environment that you know so well?
Well, it was sort of interesting because, when I did get the idea to write the script, then the geography was very dependent. So the script, was written with the geography in mind. So the weird thing was, there's a sort of, when you go to a restaurant and you eat at this restaurant, which I've been doing for years, and I know the owner of the Taverna, I was always a guest, if you like, And so the weird thing about making this film was that I took over the Taverna and let the owners of it sort of have a holiday. And I was sort of, even though I was making a movie, I was sort of running the engine room of something. Do you know what I mean? I was no longer a patron, but I was actually running the engine room. So it sort of felt strange, but it also felt like it felt nice, actually. It felt really good.
Yeah. So how many of the characters that we see in this movie are based on people that you've actually run into in the restaurant over the years?
Look, all of them, except for, I haven't run into them in the restaurant, but I've come across them in life, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that make it harder to write the script when you're basing characters on people that you know or people that you've come across, or does that actually make it easier?
It doesn't make, no, there's nothing easy about it, but the big difference for me is when obviously they're not really the characters, they're all kind of what I call base characters, the base characters exist in real life, so, essentially, like, for instance, Caterina has come from someone, I know the base character, but I've sort of reimagined her in a way. But the good thing about it is that when you know their voices, in other words, when you know their point of view, when you know intuitively things about them, it helps giving them a voice, when you write. So, it doesn't make it easier. It just makes it, they can talk to you more clearly, I think, when you write.
Yeah. One of the things that I've loved about your career is that you've tackled so many different genres, and you haven't done comedy for a while, so this is, for me, more a comedy drama, because there's a lot of drama in there as well. What was it like returning to comedy, though, as a genre?
Oh, I loved it. Yeah, I loved it. In fact, look, it was kind of motivated in a way. Yes, it's true what I said about, sitting in the Taverna, it sort of all came to me. But the kind of overriding, motivation or drive was that Vangelis who's the lead actor, he has his career in Greece and makes very, very kind of dark films, but he's a very funny human being who I get to know, sort of who I get to see pretty much once a year in Greece. And in the meantime, I've sort of always worked in that sort of dark territory as well. So when we both decided that we'll make a film together, it felt like it had to be light for me, even though, it's a very irreverent, dark comedy. There's still kind of a lightness about it. So it was great returning to that sort of territory, because it felt like it was much more fun to do. And like I said, it doesn't really, the characters are still, everyone has their issues and, they're deeply felt characters. But when you're in that kind of lighter territory, it just makes the whole experience much more fun.
Yeah. And what was Vangelis like to work with? Because he is such an amazing actor, and you can't imagine anyone else but him playing Costas after you watch this movie. What was he like to work with?
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, Dave, because that's true, isn't it? Like, he really owns that role. Like, he's just something else. So, yeah, it's sort of like, he got a connection and an understanding to that role immediately. So it was sort of, working with Vangelis, it was sort of silent collaboration we kept together because we both knew this character, and in a way it was just a matter of just always keeping on the light side of things, and we both had this understanding about it, that we wanted to sort of not lose the truth of Costas, in essence, what makes him tick, but never have him go into the territory where it becomes confrontational. So it was a pleasure working with Vangelis. I'd work with him anytime again.
Yeah. You obviously had Vangelis there from the beginning. How did you go about casting around him? Because you've got some amazing performances from the people around him as well.
Yeah, aren't they great? They're really terrific. The weird thing is, well, not weird, because I work at 16th Street Actors Studio, so I've been doing that for many years. So I get exposed and I have access to students that I teach over the years and people who come into my lives over auditions or whatever it may be. And I always kind of keep a sort of logbook of people I thought, wow, you interest me in some sort of way. So pretty much all of those actors, except for Caterina Emanuela, who's a terrific performer as well, I had come across, somewhere along the way. So I was kind of interested in them. And Caterina was someone I was looking for something specific, and I just came across her, luckily, and was able to cast her. But it's almost like what I call, there's a whole, which you would know though, there's a whole community of terrific actors out there that just don't get to work. And so I'm kind of lucky that I had a way to get to them or to find them, and that's the big difference. So that I just wanted some faces on screen that we haven't seen before.
Definitely. And you mentioned before that you kind of took over the restaurant to make the film. Tell us a little bit about the shoot itself. How long did it go? What kind of hours were you guys working to actually shoot the film?
Yeah, we kind of kept to, because look, I've been doing it for a while, but I just don't like going overtime, that killing, So we sort of kept to us, the 10-hour day or under. So but we took over the restaurant for 15 days. So we had 24-hour access, which was great because we could kind of be shooting and leave the restaurant, in terms of its, the continuity of tables, leave them and return the next night. But we were keeping night shift, basically, so that because it happens over one night and it's close to real time, I don't know if you got a sense of that. But,
yeah.
But we sort of had to keep, going back in. So we couldn't avoid it. We were, as much as we could, we'd do night for day, but pretty much in that summer of 2019, we'd be starting like 5, 6 o'clock in the afternoon and then working through to the evening.
Yeah. So it almost felt like you were watching theatre at times when you were watching it, because it was so natural that you forgot that there was a camera there amongst the characters. Did that feel the same way for you when you were directing?
Yeah, look, what I wanted to do was give it a sort of naturalism, almost like a almost like a verite documentary, that sort of sensation where you're intimately getting to know characters. It's almost like they could almost talk to you directly, and have their sort of secret life that they share with the audience and no one else knows, and that sort of approach. So the realism, was something I was intending. I wanted that sort of documentary feel, but not quite, because it's sort of still had to have a sort of sense of, that we're in a narrative. But yeah, the feel of it, like to be almost too real in a way.
Yeah. The other feeling that I got while I was watching this was I fell in love with these characters so much that I almost wished this was a pilot for a television show because I wanted to know more about their lives. Are these characters that you would actually think about going back and revisiting at some stage?
You know what? I would love to. I would love to, David. It depends on sort of how it goes, you know, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, it would be a lovely thing to revisit. I sort of set it up in a way, and it was not purposeful, but it was, you know, like that's a Friday night, so imagine what could happen Saturday night. You know, that's what I was sort of always thinking.
Exactly. And I guess that leads me to the big question for our listeners now. Where are they going to be able to see the film? Like, where are you screening it? And
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it opens on the 2nd of July, so it's screening nationally. In Melbourne, people can catch it at Palace Cinemas and Classic Cinemas. So that's, you know, like Westgarth, Balwyn, Como, Kino, Brighton Bay, Classic, Elswick, Lido, Cameo Belgrade. So, you know, sort of a good bunch of art house cinemas in Melbourne, and Sydney as well, Norton Street and Verona and Ritz and Centro, and then kind of Palace screens for the rest of Australia. You know, it was sort of Victoria's sort of gone backwards a little bit on the restrictions, so you know, we've got a healthy interest in the film and people are booking, but I'm just sort of like, because we're restricted to 20 people per screen in Melbourne, yeah, it's just going to be unfortunate, but hopefully we can sort of keep it alive.
Definitely. Well,